Hey, it's Pete. Sort of a semi update, weekend update. Haven't done much reading this week, so I might talk about a couple books that I read earlier that I enjoyed that I didn't get a chance to talk about yet. But I did finish this week the audiobook. I've got to get back to listening to Spanish audio on my walks, but I haven't quite done it yet. So, walking, doing my 10,000 steps, a lot of time to listen to audiobooks because podcasts immolated, self-immolated. So back to books. Anyway, Dark Renaissance by Stephen Greenblatt. Stephen Greenblatt is one of the two guys who the other guys Shapiro, somebody Shapiro, who write a lot of Shakespeare books, a lot of Shakespeare era books. This is a biography of Marlowe, Christopher Marlowe. Um, which I didn't think from the title it was going to be. There's been so many Christopher Marlowe biographies of recently, even in the past 10 years. I think there's been five or six. So maybe that's why I called it. I thought it was going to be about more about the times through the lens of Marlowe, and it kind of does start out that way. Greenblatt makes a big case for Marlowe being the innovator who brought in a lot of stuff that Shakespeare later would run with. And what's going on my screen here? But he is one of the most interesting characters of the period. Christopher Marlowe is, and it is the early English Renaissance, and it is a period of history that is festooned with interesting characters. So I really like particularly the beginning. The first chapter of this starts off describing England just pre-Renaissance, just pre whatever you want to call it, British Enlightenment or whatever, where the plays opened up and stuff, and talking about what life was like, and goes through Marlowe's short life. I always find it interesting to read about other playwrights in Shakespeare's time, which really puts the lie to the anti-Stratfordian BS, that Shakespeare was uniquely um, Shakespeare was uniquely unsuited for playwriting. Marlowe came from the same kind of family. He did go to university, which Shakespeare didn't. Marlowe didn't leave any letters, any diaries, very little written in his own hand, just like Shakespeare. All the things they use to try and disprove Shakespeare as a playwright, nobody tries to bothers to remove other playwrights. Interesting that another point about that on Shakespeare stuff. Because I used to be a Shakespeare conspiracy type person, but I kept reading, and I decided it's obvious that Shakespeare wrote his own work. To me, anyway, he's a man of the theater. He's an actor, writer, just like many actor writers today, actor, writer, producers today. But the current scholarship, legitimate, confirmed scholarship on Shakespeare, does include a lot of uh, understanding of how many co-writers he had. For example, it's a lot of people believe that Marlowe was a co-writer on the early history plays. That would be Henry VI, part 1, 2, and 3. So Shakespeare's scholars like Greenblatt and Shapiro and others. Shapiro wrote a good book relating all the different Shakespeare conspiracy theories, which change. They get a new candidate every 20 or 30 years, but they seem to have settled on Edward de Vere, who once beat one of his servants so bad that he died a few days later. Edward de Vere did, the person they want to hold up as the model of the actual Shakespeare. But anyway, Shakespeare they don't like because Shakespeare sued people like Harlan Ellison, like Irving Berlin. Uh, they also think that Shakespeare wasn't educated enough to talk about lawyers all the time, and Edward de Vere was apparently a lawyer, and they turn around the next thing and say, Shakespeare's always suing people, so of course he knew about the law. Anyway, I'm getting off on a dumb rant. But my point is that these scholars, contemporary educated Shakespeare scholars, are very open to the idea that Shakespeare had co-writers. There's not some vast conspiracy to pretend that Shakespeare didn't have co-writers. Uh, so there's not this cabal of people trying to protect Shakespeare's reputation. They would love to have more information about Shakespeare, or more information showing that he didn't write much of one play or another. But I found it pretty good, even though it was turned out to be mostly just a Marlowe um, biography, which of course ends with the mystery of his death, his early death, and his definitely proven ties with the Secret Service. He was at least sent on one or two missions for the British Secret Service, what would have been the British Secret Service at the time, by Lord Burleigh. I think it's Lord Burleigh. The narrator of this book, an American accented narrator, calls him Lord Burghley, like the Hamburglar or something, but I'm pretty sure it's Lord Burleigh. From the movies I've seen, from Elizabeth, the Elizabeth movie I saw, or one or two, where I think he was played by somebody. Okay, way off topic here now. Anyway, and there was a few books. This is a weird thing. Do you remember about, I think 6 months ago or so? It seemed like, and I think other people mentioned this too. I don't know if experiment or something, but YouTube was really going gangbusters on showing me 4 and 5 year old content. So I would see, instead of seeing somebody's what the reading update for the week, I would see somebody's reading update from 5 years ago. There's an interesting synchronicity though, because I saw on the front page, and you go on, I saw a review from Steve Donahue of this book, and then right below it, a review 1 year earlier or later, I can't remember, but they're both like 5 year old videos by Michael K. Vaughan of the same book. And you can see this is a different era for Michael K. Vaughan's channel, but it was this book, Appointment in Samarra. And this is probably what it looks like online. I think this is the current version that they sell on Amazon. What a fantastic book! I had read. I'm already acolyte, a follower of John O'Hara. I read all his short story books that I could find when I could, and reread a few later, because I was told by someone, definitely read his short stories. They're much better than his novels. So I took that to heart, and I read. There's a lot of good ones. Cape Cod Lighter, The Horse Knows the Way. There's a selected John O'Hara. If you have a good used bookstore that has old paperbacks, you will find tons of them, because they were popular when he was around in the 50s. Um, but so I had never read any of his novels, and then I read Pal Joey about the time I saw these videos. I wanted to see, I wanted to get this from the library, so I had to put it on hold. It was a long wait. I read Pal Joey, which I hated. Just kind of a collection of letters from this asshole, um, who asshole actor, scumbag, singer, I mean, and they later turned into a Frank Sinatra movie, and I think um, probably made him a little more sympathetic. So I was kind of worried when it came to Appointment of Samara if I wouldn't like it anymore. And it is amazing. It is his first novel. He wrote it when he was very young, by my standards anyway. I think around 25 or 26. In a way, it still has the structure of a mosaic of short stories, because it goes from couple to couple to couple in this small town, or different people, mostly couples. After this guy he doesn't even necessarily have too much to drink. He just, at a party, at a work party, I mean, at a social gathering, which includes his workers and friends and everything, he decides to blow up his life. Not sure why. Not even sure he was, but it's a fantastic story. This kind of makes it look like Jazz Age or something. I can't remember what year it was written now. But it's a fantastic book, restored my faith, and I was very relieved to know that I still love John O'Hara. So I'm going to read some of his short stories again when I can. That's one I wanted to talk about for a while, but I was saving it for my list. Where are my other pictures? Oh, okay. Interesting. Interesting. I'm going to go one more before I get to probably my most surprising favorite on this list. And I have that and that one and this one also, Steve Donahue to thank again. Thank you, Steve Donahue. The Uncommon Reader by Alan Bennet. I don't remember when he recommended this. I don't think it was part of Shorty September. The other one I'm going to talk about in a minute definitely was. A lovely book by Alan Bennet about, you probably recognize her profile, Queen Elizabeth. It's a speculative fiction, in a way, alternate history, where she becomes an avid reader through interesting circumstances by meeting a librarian in a mobile library on the property. Just a joy to read. It shows you how reading affects your life for good or bad. I think mostly for good, but it definitely changes you as a person. It's very enjoyable to read about this. I believe it was written in honor of the Queen. Anyway, I enjoyed that read. It was a lot of fun. Now, this next book. Okay, so Steve Donahue, I don't think I'm mischaracterizing him to say that he's not a fan of the novel Stoner, which I like, and a lot of us bros online like. But he is a fan of this book, which is, I would say, I would argue, is almost the anti-Stoner, and it is an amazing little book. And I, again, having read it for the first time this year, you'll probably recognize the name when I show it to you. I'm surprised how much story, how much life is packed into this 100-page novella. This is the copy that they've sold billions of these. Back in the day, they sold billions of these. I believe there was a movie. I know there was a movie because it was kind of a big event when it came to television when I was a little kid. I was too young to watch it. It's not anything, it's not unkid friendly. It's probably just not interesting to many kids. Here's the classic novel of a beloved English schoolmaster. And so this is the life of a schoolmaster, similar to Stoner being the life of an American professor, literature guy, a person of the book, or not a person of the book, person of literature, man of letters, whatever you want to call it. This is a schoolmaster, so it's younger age students, and it's England, so it's a different school system. And this is about a guy who lives, like Stoner, a quiet life, a beautiful, quiet life of, in this case, of service to education, who has in his past, he's the kind of person, you've probably met these people or found out about these people in your life that you see a person, an older person who's retired. He's about to retire at the beginning of this, and much of the book takes place after his retirement, and he's so beloved that he has like a stipend and a place on campus. He's kind of a legend on campus, even after he stops teaching, even after all the students he's taught are gone and new students come in, and they just know him as a fixture of the campus, like a great old sage of the campus, or sometimes they think of him as an oddball, but had an amazing, amazing life story, as a particular episode, a particular like sort of love story. I don't want to go too much into it because it's really a wonderful surprise that people would never guess that this man would have, just being like an older bachelor, and people seeing him and not thinking of his, children not thinking of him as being a young man or anything other than what they see in front of them. And it's wonderful. And so it's about the end of his life. It's about the total of his life, and it's just beautifully written and so joyful, which is why I think it was an incredibly famous book for a long time. I don't think people read it anymore. If someone had a mind to and wanted to make a Netflix series, they make a 19-part, 2-season Netflix series of this 100-page book. I think it would revive the book. I don't know if it's the kind of subject that they'd want to talk about these days, but it's just very heartwarming and kind and generous, and it goes along with some of the other things I've been reading this year that are a great escape, a great anecdote to the horrible, to the very difficult times we're living in. And I am safe in Ecuador, by the way. There's been some news. In fact, I saw Jimmy Dore said Trump invaded Ecuador. It's not quite what's happening. The president of Ecuador, no, I don't know how to say his name, so I better not say it, is a Trump ally, is a Trump friend for now. Not to get way into politics, but Trump has more ex-friends than he has friends at this point. So I don't know how that'll go for the government of Ecuador in the end. I don't want to speculate because let's just keep it positive. But there are joint military operations going on the coast of Ecuador. I'm up in the mountains on the coast where there's drug violence and there's some gang run illegal mining operations and things like that. I believe they're doing some joint operations. They also did a peculiar, out of nowhere, decided that Ecuador decided. I shouldn't talk about this. Okay, well, I will quickly since I brought it up. Out of nowhere, Ecuador this week decided to break off all diplomatic relations with Cuba for no reason. No reason stated. They said we don't have to give a reason. They're recalling their ambassador from Cuba. They're what do you call it? Throwing out. They're closing the Cuban embassy here, throwing out all the diplomats, sending them back to Cuba. Obviously, this has something to do with Trump and Rubio's plans for Cuba. So it is distressing behavior. It is really not good when countries stop talking. I think, as we know, whether the governments are opposed, having a center right government in Ecuador versus a communist government in Cuba, they really should keep diplomatic relations like we are allegedly North America's Estados Unidos is allegedly reopening diplomatic relations with Venezuela, and that's good. I approve of that. Anyway, so that's enough politics for this time. I really just said it because a couple people did ask if what it's like here. If I'm, if it's dangerous, it's probably no more dangerous than Minnesota. It's probably safer than a lot of countries. It's more dangerous than other places, but you got to live your life. All right, so I hope you will all read Goodbye, Mr. Chips, An Appointment in Samarra. Appointment in Samarra if you're in the mood for something dark and gritty. Goodbye, Mr. Chips, if you just want to feel good about life. And Uncommon Reader will do that too. And the reason I'm talking about these older books that I read a while ago is because I'm mostly reading. I'm ramping up, getting my engine started on March on the Rails, which is the train book um, um, event for March. But I haven't really read much in that. I've read a little bit of the first book I'm reading, which is Ripley's Game, and I read a little book of the group read, The Great Railway Bazaar by the travel memoir by the guy's name who escapes me at the moment, who wrote Mosquito Coast and a bunch of other train memoirs too. So that's it. I'll talk to you guys later. Take care.